Tonight's reading is from Jeremiah chapter 32, verses 38 through 41. They shall be my people, and I will be their God. And I will give them one heart and one way, that they may fear me always. For their own good is for the good of their children after them. I will make an everlasting covenant with them, that I will not turn away from them to do them good, and I will put the fear of me in their hearts, so that they will not turn away from me. I will rejoice over them to do them good, and will faithfully plant them in this land with all my heart and with all my soul.
Good evening. If you have your Bibles there, you should keep them there. In a few minutes, Scott's going to get up and he's going to give a little bit more of a invitation. But as we come to a close of this year, and the timing works out well that it literally is the last day of the year, we wanted to talk a little bit about our plans for 24, what we are looking to do throughout the year, and share some updates on those things. And Scott's going to walk through our theme and our different events that we have planned out for 24. One of the other things that we had to do as we closed out the year in 23, though, is we had to do some work around looking at our teaching and some of the work that we do there, actually the great work that is done here by this group. And this is a requirement that we ran into with our insurance company, and we had to develop this wonderful thing that they collectively call a youth protection policy. We would call it common sense and practicalness, but we had to document some things. And really, what I'm going to share with you is a kind of an overview of that policy that we put together, just so that everybody understands that. And we also get to check a box for the requirement that we have shared this with the group on an annual basis. But what I'm sharing with you really is what we've already been doing. A lot of this was already written down or captured, but we really needed to kind of sort of codify this in a lot of ways. So I'm going to get the less fun part of here's the end of 23, we're going into 24 part done, and I'll hand it over to the fun guy, and he'll bring in some more good news. So a youth protection policy, again, is a requirement for our insurance, and to be able to prove this and show that to them, really is an encapsulation of some practical pieces that we already do. And we are looking at this again from the perspective of what we do within the work here and within the designs of our the gospel and what we're teaching. So we look at the teachers here as being members of the congregation, and this would also include a helper. We're looking to make sure that we always have at least two individuals in the classroom, teachers in there at all times, and that is for all age groups. And only the students, or parents, of the students should be in the classes. If you do not have a student in there, there's no reason for you to be in there unless you are the teacher or the helper. Again, they're in pairs. It's not appropriate that we have one teacher in there with a small group of students, or even with a single student. So we want to avoid even that appearance of any sort of impropriety. Again, things that we already put into practice now. Especially in the younger classes, though, we do understand that there is more than just Bible class going on. If you're in some of those smaller classes, there's also the fun thing of learning how to control your body and when you go to the bathroom and all those kind of fun things too. So we fully understand that for those teachers and those age groups in particular, that there are going to be moments where there is just one person in there because somebody else needed to be excused. So we understand those exceptions to this. It is expected that the teachers will take the child to their parent or the guardian that's here with them, whoever that may be, and make sure that they are delivered to the parent so that they can take care of those issues. If you are going to be absent as a teacher, we would ask, and again, these are things that are already done, we'd ask that you would look for a replacement. If you cannot find someone, please notify one of the elders or one of the deacons, and we'll make sure that we find a substitute just to ensure, again, that there's always two in there. Any kind of disciplinary actions that may come up in the classroom, I think this is already handled this way as well. You are their teacher, not their parent. Obviously, you're doing coaching and directing while you're in there, but if it is a more of a stern issue, then that needs to be taken to the parent. That is their responsibility. We do not condone nor will we allow any teacher to physically reprimand, raise your voices, or even threaten any of the students. So if you have a problem with the child, that's the parent's issue, not you as the teacher. So parents, just if your child gets brought out, the expectation is you're going to deal with that accordingly. Again, as we talked about with the restrooms, we're asking that the parents do that. If you are a parent and you got a small child in there, that you would give permission to one of the teachers to take to the restroom. That is at your discretion, but you need to vocalize that to that teacher. That is not the responsibility of anyone else but you. The other thing that we did too, and again this isn't obvious, is we went through and we made sure that each one of the classrooms has windows. We want to make sure that things are visible. What we're doing in the classrooms is open to everybody. We're not obviously trying to hide anything. So my appreciation to the deacons and specifically to Mark, and I think Gary was involved in that too, of getting the last classroom and getting that window put in there as well too. We are going to ask too that the teachers, when you leave, you prop the doors open. Most of the time we're doing this too, just to make sure that those are open, and then we'll make sure they're closed off for fire safety before we leave the building. If you are a teacher, and unfortunately these are situations that may come up, but if you do find anything that requires greater attention regarding behavior or comments that a child may make, you need to notify us of that. We need to make sure that any issues that are brought up are addressed accordingly and appropriately. So bring that up to the elders. We have a set group of men that we've kind of designated to be taking care of this, but you can reach out to any of the elders. The men that we have set along for this specifically are Scott Taylor, Tyler Hall, and Jonathan Compton. But again, any of the elders or deacons you may reach out to, and we will make sure that the appropriate places are notified. If you do, again, unfortunately, if you do encounter anything, please notify us immediately. We can make sure that those things are addressed quickly and make sure that the right parties are involved in this. Our whole goal, as has always been, is to help shape these young lives, to teach them about the truth and the gospel and lead them to that truth. And that is the whole purpose, and I know that is the purpose of everyone sitting in this room as well. But we also understand too that Satan is always looking for a way to encroach and to taint those things. And so as we work together as a family, let's continue to remember that we are a family, look out for each other, help each other. I have a formal copy of this. If anyone wants to look at this in more detail, please let me know. Or if you have any specific questions on this policy that we put together, please let me know on that as well. So again, looking forward to a great year in 24. I thought long and hard about what's a good transition to go from this to Scott, and I really don't have a good one. So, but if you have any questions, let me know, and Scott will introduce 24 to us.
That was boring, Brian. Thank you very much. The goal, obviously, is always to be concerned about all members here at West Mason, from the youngest to the oldest. And that's the hope and goal of any time. You're also going to see signs put in each hallway that shows you where the exits are. And if you can't figure that out, just look down the hallway, you'll see the exit. But we have to put those things up. These are things that obviously have common sense for sure, but when you have to deal with things that are in the world and various things, we are just so blessed to have wonderful people here. And we want to thank you as an eldership. Thank you for all that you do, and obviously we'll continue to watch over and do the things we need to do, but we just certainly appreciate the attitude and the love that everyone just shows one another. We appreciate that. This past year, obviously, there's been the highs and the lows, as every year talks about, or every year comes with, as Jonathan talked about this morning. There's highs and there's going to be lows, and just like this coming year will be the same. This past year, as you can look around the building or around the auditorium, you see what we talked about. And you'll see these banners, I'm sure, throughout the building as we go forward. But we're going to have new ones that are up. I want to thank Ashley for putting the logos and various things together, as that you'll see, and Steve as he'll be making them. But what we're going to talk about this coming year is really something that would come up if it would work. There we go. It's going to be one heart and one way. This morning, Tyler read from Jeremiah, the 32nd chapter, verse 38 and 39. We had it read tonight as well. The idea of going into this new year is going to be surrounding the fact that we have our God. He is my God. He is your God. That I am his child. You are his child. And that we are unified with him and with one another in one heart and one mind. And obviously it's going to be broken down, as we do every year, to various different points when we talk about the family, we talk about the church as a whole, we talk about how we treat one another, just various things we're going to be discussing throughout the year, as we always do. And you'll see various verses up on the sides as well pertaining to those things. But this will be the theme for next year: one heart and one way. What's coming up as we go forward into the new year are going to be some various different classes. You can click that forward. And different things that are coming up. We had groups before, and if you're used to groups, I've been in groups for many, many years. They fizzle out after a while. That's what happens. But our hope is for the groups are actually going to be very specific this time. We are blessed to be able to start a service over where the Gallaghers are living. And that's going to be every Sunday at 1:30. And the desire is for every group that's already been broken down, we'll get that all out to you, is going to be under the direction of a couple of elders, deacons, and we'll be going over once a month or so to be able to do that kind of work, do other things as well, but specifically to be able to do that work. That's going to start in February. In January, Tyler, myself, and some of the others will be going over and starting those things. But we're actually going to be able to meet in the auditorium over there, where there's going to be they think, a great number of people there to worship with us. And so there's a great opportunity that we have before us over there. So that'll be starting specifically in February of this coming year. We had the weekend camp this past year, and it went very, very well. And we're going to do it again this year. It's in June. That's coming up this year, and all the dates we'll get them out to you. But what comes with that, obviously, is the desire to have people involvement, to have your involvement in this. We needed people that could drive, people that could stay at people's houses, all those things. And we thank you for those of you that helped out with that last year. Please consider doing the same this year, and others, if you would, please consider doing the same. We'll do the VBS as well. Tyler and myself will continue to do a community Bible study at coffee shops at this point every other Tuesday. We have people coming from the community to those also, so it's a great work that's going on. You'll notice, as it says up there, there's 3 planned meetings this year. Tim Stevens is R.J. Stevens' son. You may have heard that name before. Tim Stevens is going to come and talk about song leading and singing. And so I think that is in March, I believe, somewhere around that time frame. And so he'll be talking specifically about singing, and certainly looking forward to that. We can always grow in our singing, certainly in our song leading, and so we're excited to have him come and to be with us. Jeremy Bard and Stephen Matthews will come and hold our meetings as we normally have them on specific topics pertaining to what we're going to be talking about this year, but certainly looking forward to that as well. The other classes will continue. Thursday morning class, men's Bible study, women's Bible study, the Tender Hearts study will continue. You may notice, and the Pippins will continue to have some plans that they do for the young people. Just tremendous opportunities for all of us to get together. If you're not getting together, it's by your choice. That's the goal. We all have the opportunities. They are all available to everyone. And if you see an opportunity that we need to do more, by all means plan. That would be great. And let us know. We just certainly would love those opportunities. But there's just a lot of things that we have going on and will continue to do, and other things that will come up as well, to give us all the opportunity to continue to grow in 2024. And so, again, I just want to thank everyone for all that you do in the congregation here. and certainly from a personal standpoint for the help that you've been to me throughout the year, certainly this past year with my surgery and various things that happened. So we just need to continue to lean on one another, encourage one another, and do all we can to help one another. So that was the fun part that we have. There'll be more to be said about that as we go. Click the button. It is a brand new year. This is a template of a slide on what I use to get the sermons. And this is the only time that this has ever happened that this is the right date on it. December 31st. We are actually on the last day of this year. It's amazing to me. I can remember when I started 2023, what I was talking about, the excitement from our standpoint of this new theme that we had, and here we are at the end. As I said, Wednesday night there have been a lot of changes. We've had people that have obeyed the gospel. We have had people that have passed away. We've had people that have moved into the area, have left, people that have gotten married, various things that have occurred throughout this year. New babies. It's amazing how every single year comes with those things. The question for all of us as we come to an end of a year, the beginning of a new year, is really how we look at ourselves and whether or not we truly are changing or truly being the new self, as again Jonathan talked about this morning. The new self, the new creature that God has made us to be. Or do we continue to live in the past self? Continue to do the things that we were doing? We do have an opportunity, as every single day that God blesses us with, to begin anew. To begin striving to serve Him. To begin doing the things we need to do to serve our God. Tomorrow, people will start Bible plans. That's what we do. Probably Genesis. Tomorrow. If you don't change your heart, and you don't change with a desire to grow, you're just checking a list. You're checking Genesis 1 off. There's a purpose to why we read. There's a purpose and a desire to know the author of this book. And that's really what we're striving to have. And so if you turn to Luke the 19th chapter with me, as we offer the invitation a little bit this evening, it's just the thought of whether or not we truly understand that God knows who we are. Luke the 19th chapter, this is going to specifically talk about Zacchaeus. And Zacchaeus and who he is, you know, is just a very wealthy man. He is a man who was a chief tax collector. He is a man that people did not like. He was a tax collector. He would have been viewed as somebody who was just committing treason, a traitor of the people. How can you take our money? He would have been viewed from that perspective. But he also was a man who knew or had heard about Jesus. And the other interesting thing about this story as we go through this in Luke the 19th chapter is really that nobody was going to let him up to the front of the line. You know, we talk about him getting up in the tree. There's reasons for that. He was a short man, it says. But it's not like the people were friendly to him, as we'll see as we go through this. So he climbs up this tree. Luke 19, beginning in verse 1, he says, he entered Jericho and was passing through, and there was a man called by the name of Zacchaeus, and he was a chief tax collector, and he was rich. Zacchaeus was trying to see who Jesus was and was unable because of the crowd, for he was small in stature. So he ran on ahead and climbed up into a sycamore tree in order to see him, for he was about to pass through that way. When Jesus came to the place, he looked up and said to him, Zacchaeus, hurry and come down, for today I must stay at your house. And he hurried and came down and received him gladly. When they saw it, they all began to grumble, saying, he has gone to be the guest of a man who is a sinner. Zacchaeus stopped and said to the Lord, behold, Lord, half of my possessions I give to the poor. And if I have defrauded anyone of anything, I will give back 4 times as much. And Jesus said to him, today salvation has come to this house, because he too is the son of Abraham. For the Son of Man has come to seek and to save that which was lost. It is amazing to think about what that day brought for Zacchaeus. Just click the whole slide up there. You think Zacchaeus decided in Jericho that day that his life was absolutely going to change? There was going to be 2,000 years later, we're going to be reading about this short man that climbed the sycamore tree. A man that Jesus knew his name. This day in his life absolutely changed everything for him, or at least gave him that opportunity. You think about Proverbs the 27th chapter and verse 1 talks about that very same thing. We don't know what every day is going to bring us. We need to live for today, but we don't even know what today is going to bring. Zacchaeus' life is going to absolutely change at this point. And it didn't matter all of a sudden what everybody else thought. Did you notice what happens when he begins to walk and people begin to say who he is? He's a sinner. He doesn't even know he's a sinner. And Zacchaeus stops Jesus. Because you imagine him saying, I know he's hearing what they're saying about me. I know he's hearing this. It didn't matter to Jesus. But it mattered to Zacchaeus. And it certainly can matter to us in those moments. One of the things that I want you to understand, and one of the things that as I talk about so often, we need to make sure we're always realizing is that God knows your name. He knows who you are. He knows every single thing that you have gone through. He knows every single thing that you have done. And he loves you more than you can ever imagine. There are times where people get caught up in this life, and there's various things that happen in this life that are horrible. And we need to be reminded of the value that we have in the eyes of our Father. He loves you. You are worthy to be his heir. And you have the opportunity, just like Zacchaeus, just like anybody else, to be with him for eternity. To accept him into your home, as we see here with Zacchaeus. That's a choice that we all have. And it is an amazing thing to me that the God of all knows who I am. There are times when somebody comes up to me and it takes me a few minutes that I've known for years, and it takes me a while to know your name, to think of it. What is their name? Or when you go to a different place, if I go and hold meetings, people know, they know my name. That's Scott. But I don't remember their names. Hey, you. The God of all knows your name. He knows that I go by my middle name. He knows all that I've done. That is an amazing thing to be able to say about our God. We can talk about powerful men. They're nothing compared to him. He knows your name. The question for us is whether or not we're going to invite him in. In verse 5, Jesus comes to the place. He looks up and he says, Zacchaeus, as we said, hurry and come down, for today I must stay at your house. It is amazing to think about the choice that Zacchaeus had at this point. I want to stay at your house. I want to go to your house. No. Revelation chapter 3 and verse 20 is that God is knocking at the door. Are you going to open the door? Am I going to open that door? Am I going to test myself, as 2 Corinthians the 13th chapter verse 5 talks about, to see if I'm in Christ? Do I really invite him in? That is your choice. God is knocking at your door. God knows your name, and he wants you to invite him in. The all-powerful God leaves it up to you whether or not you're going to let him in. That is awesome. That is love. And the interesting thing as you go forward in this, and there's a lot of points that we should certainly make from this story, is that not only does he know Zacchaeus' name, not only does he invite him in, but this was specific to Zacchaeus. Zacchaeus was a sinner, just like we all are. You can skip it for me. Just like we all are. And the people knew. The people knew. The interesting thing that you see here in verse 7, as I said earlier, and when they saw it, that he was going to his house, they all began to grumble, saying, "He has gone to be the guest of a man who is a sinner." Gone into his house. Zacchaeus explains what he is willing to do. And then verse 9, "Today salvation has come to this house because he too is a son of Abraham." But the people there would have viewed Zacchaeus not to be as a son of Abraham. He was a sinner. He was a traitor. In some places during this time, they wouldn't have let him into a synagogue because he was a tax collector. But Jesus Christ went to his house. Jesus Christ said, "You are the son of Abraham." And Jesus Christ offered him something that nobody else could offer him, which was salvation. You see, we can understand or have the choice of what we're going to make of whether or not we're going to follow him. We don't know what happens to Zacchaeus after this. His name is never mentioned again. He has choices to make, doesn't he? He could go back to being a tax collector and ripping people off if that's what he was doing, or if he chooses to do that. Or that moment of meeting Jesus Christ would change his life forever. And that he was going to be one that was saved from being lost, as verse 10 said. That's a choice that we all have. We all have the opportunity, as Zacchaeus did, to choose whether or not this God who loves us, who knows us, who allows us to choose whether or not we're going to have a relationship with him, if we're going to allow him to change our lives. Or we're just going to continue to do what we do. That's a choice that every single one of us has today. That's a choice that every single one of us has every day that God blesses us with. When you read the scriptures like Zacchaeus or Barabbas, hopefully, at least what I do, is I put myself in their shoes. Barabbas should have died, so should I. Zacchaeus was a sinner, so am I. But by the grace of my God, I am forgiven of those sins that I have committed. And have the opportunity to be with him for eternity. Today, salvation is here. If you do not have a relationship with God, now's the time. As always, if you need prayers, please ask. We all need to make sure we're praying for one another, remembering one another, doing all we can to help one another. But the goal of all of this, the congregation here, everything that we do is to point to Jesus Christ and to point to those relationships that we can have because of what he has done for us. And if we can help you with that, we would love that opportunity. If there's anything that we can do for you, I ask you to please come as we stand.